Welcome back to Straight Talk. I'm Laurel Porter. We're talking about the Republican primary for Oregon governor. Last week, my guest was Sam Carpenter. Earlier in the show, you heard from Newt Buehler. Now it's my pleasure to welcome candidate retired Navy Captain Greg Wooldridge. Thank you for joining us here on Straight Talk.
I'm glad to be here, Laurel. Thank you.
You jumped into the race rather late. You
Yes.
got in February. Why did you decide at that point that you want to be governor of Oregon?
I looked at the field and I looked at the incumbent and I thought, I've got to do this. You know, I'd been asked before a lot earlier, you got to get in the race. We need leadership in Salem. And I kept putting it off, and finally I decided it's time. We need to have this state on a bright course, and it's not there right now. We need leadership.
And then you won the Dorchester poll in earlier this year.
It surprised me. I thought if I get a strong third, because I'd been in the race about 3 weeks, and I thought if I get a strong third, wow, that would be great. And I went in and we each got 5 minutes to talk, and I won by double digits.
Well, you're a motivational speaker in your past career.
I have a lot of passion for what I do on the speaking circuit, and I've got a lot of passion for this opportunity to lead this magnificent state.
Let's find out more about you.
Sure.
Greg Wooldridge is a retired naval aviator who spent 27 years in the Navy, retiring as captain. He headed up the famed Blue Angels aerobatic team, the only commanding officer to lead the team for 3 separate tours. Since leaving the Navy, Wooldridge has been a motivational speaker, also worked for a while for FedEx. He's been involved in GOP politics since arriving in Oregon in 2006. He helped organize a veterans group in support of John McCain's 2008 presidential campaign in Oregon and attended the Republican convention that year. He now lives in Portland. But you don't have any political experience, Captain Wooldridge, and you've never been elected to public office. Why do you think Oregon voters will choose somebody without government experience when in the past, recent past, they rejected 2 other Republican nominees with no political experience? Chris Dudley, who played for the NBA, had great name recognition, and Dr. Bud Pierce, most recently a doctor. Why will it be different this time, do you think?
Laurel, I like to say I've never been elected, but I've been selected. I got selected to lead the Blue Angels and also to command a major naval air station in California. And it's that command experience with that naval air station, which was remote, a little bit older base, and it was so remote that it had its own schools, hospitals, 2 long runways, it had an airport, it had public safety, it had transportation, and it had housing for about 4,000 people. So it was like a small state within a state. And all the regulations that were there were like running a state. And our base, being old, we provide incredible quality of life, efficiency, and effectiveness as an air station. And we were selected as the best station in the Navy in the world that year. So the best installation. And so it's that experience that I think gives me a leg up on Dr. Pierce and on Chris Dudley, because I have led a major organization. I have leadership that I've gleaned from all my great experiences in the Navy, and I'm just ready to do this. And I've got a way forward for our state.
Last week, your campaign put out a press release calling for your opponent, Sam Carpenter, another conservative in the race, to drop out. And he told us last week he thinks that's ridiculous, that polls show that he has better numbers than you do, and said you should drop out. Have you considered dropping out?
I have not. By the way, that was his poll that showed those numbers. And there's other polling, like the Washington County straw poll 2 or 3 weeks ago, where I was 1 point behind Newt and Sam was about 6 points behind me. And there's been other polls that don't bear out his poll. I would not drop out, and the reason is I think I'm the only candidate that can beat Kate Brown. And we need to move ahead from what she's left us in her 27 years of public service. She hasn't done very well, and our state really needs a course correction.
Is there a danger that the 2 of you might split the vote, though, the 2 conservatives, and then Newt Buehler will win?
I don't think so. I think what we'll do, I think it's close to a 3-way split right now. And our campaign is surging. I'm having such great receptions wherever I go. People come to me and say, well, I was going to vote for this person, but I've seen you now. I'm voting for you. So we're surging. We're doing a media blitz. And I'm going to get a fella that has an airplane to fly me around the state some more next week, get in front of the people more and more media. So
you gave me one of your campaign cards, and one of the things that's a top priority for you is infrastructure and congestion, which is, you know, everybody hates the traffic around here. The legislature did pass a more than $5 billion transportation package in the last legislative session. What more would you want to do?
What I want to do is really ease the burden on small business. The infrastructure holds back small businesses, and that's what I think is the worst problem about the congestion. We need more lanes, and we need more roads. The package that was passed was not enough. We need to do more. We have to get, I like to use the example of a mom and pop florist who has 10 deliveries to make in an afternoon. The van's got all the flowers in it. They get 3 done. They have to eat 7 orders and they lose those customers. So we've got to do better for that part of our economy, that 80% of the economy that small business comprised, and make them flow, make the infrastructure work for them. And of course, you know, you and I getting to work and getting around, it gets aggravating, right?
Well, that transportation package, though, included a lot of fees and taxes, maybe tolls. How would you do more without raising more revenue?
Well, I'm going to go to Washington. I'm going to get Greg Wooldridge and our other federal representatives, and we're going to go back and work on getting more money for this state. We've been neglected. We've got to do better. The federal government's got to pitch in for us. And then perhaps we may need to float a bond or two to
So you think Greg Wooldridge could help you get more money from the feds?
Yes, of course.
Let me ask you about the sanctuary status, because Oregon is a sanctuary state. It has been for 30 years. The law is on the books. You said you don't support the state sanctuary status.
Right.
If you were governor, would you work to overturn that law?
I would. And originally, when we became a sanctuary state in the 80s, it was for a good reason. You know, we were kind of picking people out to test them, and we probably shouldn't have been doing that. Now what we do is a public safety concern for me. We release felons back into the general public when they should be turned over to ICE for deportation. And I don't want Oregonians to be threatened by felons in this
Well, supporters of the sanctuary status say that if you overturn that, it would threaten vulnerable population. It would divide and polarize the state. The immigrant community is important to our labor force, to agriculture, to the hospitality industry, and they're already living in fear.
Right. Well, I don't know if I buy into that they're living in fear. I think they live here very comfortably. What I would say is those felons that get released go back into the immigrant communities, and that's where they commit their crimes. We need not to let that happen. We're going to make everybody here safe and comfortable. We're going to make life really good for the folks here.
You're pro-life, and Oregon Right to Life has endorsed you. If you win the primary, that's bound to be a big issue as you go into the general election. If you were elected governor, would your position be on women's rights? Would you work to overturn the laws we already have protecting a woman's right to choose, or would you support those laws?
No, what I would do, Laurel, is we're the only state in the union that has no protection for the unborn, right? And I'm pro-life. I don't think you should be able to pick and choose based on gender, things like that, and all the way up until birth to take the life of a child. I don't think that should happen. I would like to see us move back from our very, very liberal, unmatched in the nation position on abortion. Yes.
On the Second Amendment, you're a strong supporter. Students across the country have raised their voices, many marching in Oregon and across the country, calling for more gun control to reduce gun violence in our schools. Would you support raising the age to buy a gun to 21 years old?
No, I wouldn't. My military career, I had wonderful men and women at the age of 18 that were armed to protect our country and to protect themselves in that process. I think they have the full maturity to handle weapons, and I wouldn't raise the age. What I want to do with schools is institute the National School Shield program, the safety program that's out there that talks about making the school safe. And I understand the trials and the tribulations that our young people have about bad folks getting into the schools. We just got to stop the bad folks, and we've got to work with mental health, and I think that's going to be one of your next questions.
Well, would you want to arm teachers?
You know, probably not. Probably not.
And how about banning assault rifles?
We have to define what assault means in a weapon. It can be just about anything. No, I wouldn't ban those type of semi-automatic weapons that are already legal. You
talk about mental health. I know that's really important to you. You had a personal story that really touched you. You met somebody in crisis, a woman standing on the edge of a bridge preparing to jump. Can you tell us more about that and how it affected you?
Gets me choked up, sorry. It
was a pretty powerful moment for you.
It was. it helped define for me mental health. So crossing an overpass over 217, and there was a woman climbing over the rail, and I thought, well, she's just getting a better look, right? Rationalize it out. I kept driving. I thought, no, you got to do something. Nobody else is stopping. It's rush hour. So I turned the car around, went back. Luckily, another person had stopped. The lady had stopped and pulled her back across the rail. And then I got her and I talked to her and I told her that she was loved, you know, and I could see the distress in her face. She really wanted to jump. She wanted to end her life. And you know what? It drove home the point that this is real. Mental health issues real. We're 44th in the nation in how we provide mental health help. And veterans in Oregon commit the highest rate of suicide of any place in the nation. So mental health is a huge issue. You see it in the homeless population. It's out there. We've got to do something about it. Sorry.
I see. This has really moved you. What?
It has.
We only have about 30 seconds. What would you do?
Well, we've got to look at mental health and mental hospitals, you know, where we're going to treat people. The certificate of need has to be maybe taken a different look at in order to get these places, you know, built and carried through so we can help our veterans and the rest of the population.
Well, Captain Wooldridge, it's been a pleasure to have you
Thanks,
here
Laura.
on Straight Talk. There's a lot more to learn about you on many positions. You can find out more about Captain Greg Wooldridge at WooldridgeForOregon.com.
Thank you so much.
Straight Talk airs twice a week on KGW, Saturdays at 4:30 and Sundays at 6:30 p.m. right after NBC Nightly News. Join me next week when my guests are the candidates for Portland City Commissioner. We'll see you next week for Straight Talk.
Yeah.